The Cartier bracelet wasn't where it should have been. Naomi Bennett had seen Julian hide it 3 weeks ago, tucked behind his golf shoes in the closet of their bedroom. She'd glimpsed the signature red box while putting away laundry, had felt that familiar twist in her stomach, had told herself it was probably for her. Christmas was coming. They'd been married 9 years. He wouldn't have hidden it if it were something innocent. But now, Christmas morning, the box was gone. She stood at the window of their 6,000-square-foot mansion in Potomac, Maryland, watching her husband load shopping bags into his Mercedes. The winter sun reflected off the snow, making everything bright and sharp. Julian was whistling. Actually whistling while he arranged expensive packages in his trunk. Bags from Nordstrom, Tiffany, Saks, Fifth Avenue. Emergency meeting at the office, he told her 20 minutes ago, kissing her cheek while she stood at the stove preparing Christmas dinner for 2. Supply chain crisis. I'll be back by 3. It was 10 in the morning. Naomi had nodded, smiled, wished him luck. Then she'd walked upstairs, put on dark jeans and a black coat, grabbed her keys and followed him. Now she sat in her Lexus 3 cars behind his Mercedes, watching him drive past the exit for his office building. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles ached. She already knew where he was going. She'd known since she saw the bracelet box disappear, since she noticed the pattern of late meetings and business trips, since she'd felt him become a stranger in their bed. The Montgomery Plaza Apartments. 23 minutes from their home. Luxury building with a doorman. Julian parked in the visitor section. Naomi pulled into the garage across the street, positioning herself where she could see the entrance. He got out. Smoothed his coat. Collected all those shopping bags, including one she recognized, the exact size of a Cartier box. A young woman met him in the lobby. Even from a distance, Naomi could see she was beautiful. Slim, professional-looking with long dark hair. She wore jeans and a red sweater. The doorman smiled at them both like he recognized them. Like this was routine. Julian handed her a large Nordstrom bag. She opened it right there in the lobby, pulled out what looked like a cashmere coat, threw her arms around his neck. He kissed her. Not a quick kiss. A real kiss, the kind that made Naomi's stomach drop through the floor of her car. They went inside together. Julian's arm around the woman's waist. Easy. Comfortable. Familiar. Naomi sat in that garage for 5 hours. She didn't cry. That surprised her. She just sat there watching the entrance as Christmas music played faintly from a nearby shop. She watched families walk past carrying presents. Watched neighbors greet each other. Watched the sky change from morning bright to afternoon gray. At 2:47 p.m. Julian emerged. Alone. His hair was messed up. His coat was buttoned wrong. He was smiling at his phone. Naomi waited until he drove away, then waited another 30 minutes. She sat with her hands in her lap, breathing slowly, feeling something fundamental shift inside her chest. It wasn't heartbreak exactly. It was colder than that. Clear. She drove home carefully, taking surface streets, giving herself time to think. The turkey dinner she'd prepared that morning sat on the counter, covered in foil, untouched. The house smelled like roasted herbs and cinnamon. Christmas lights twinkled on the tree they decorated together last week, laughing while they argued about ornament placement. She looked at those lights for a long time. Then she walked upstairs to his office, took out her phone, and began taking pictures of every document she could find. Julian came home at 4:15. Traffic was terrible, he said, kissing her forehead. Sorry I'm late. Merry Christmas, baby. He handed her a small box. Inside was a pair of diamond earrings. Beautiful. Expensive. Meaningless. They're perfect, Naomi said, and her voice didn't shake at all. Thank you. They ate Christmas dinner at the dining room table. Julian talked about work, about the supply chain issues he'd supposedly spent his morning solving. Naomi watched him lie to her face and realized she was watching a stranger. Someone she'd given 9 years of her life to. Someone she trusted completely. Someone who'd spent Christmas morning with another woman while his wife sat alone in a parking garage. After dinner, he fell asleep on the couch watching football. Naomi went upstairs, opened her laptop, and created a new encrypted folder. She labeled it Evidence. Then she started planning. By the time Julian woke up at 10 that night, confused and stiff from the couch, Naomi had already researched divorce attorneys, private investigators, and forensic accountants. She had screenshots of his credit card statements going back 6 months. She had a list of questions to ask, steps to take, people to contact. Coming to bed? Julian asked, yawning. In a minute, Naomi said. She listened to him walk upstairs, heard the shower start. Looked at her computer screen. At the beginning of the plan that would take everything away from the man who'd thrown away their marriage for Christmas morning with someone else. She wasn't sad anymore. She wasn't hurt. She was something else entirely. She was done. Naomi had always been good at details. As head of human resources for TechVision Solutions, a company with 3,000 employees, her entire career depended on documentation, pattern recognition, and careful investigation. She knew how to build a case. She knew how to gather evidence without leaving traces. She knew how to be patient. She used all those skills now. The morning after Christmas, she called her office voicemail from her car and left herself a message about needing to review some personnel files. Then she drove to a coffee shop in Bethesda, 20 minutes from home, and made her first call. Chin Investigations, a crisp voice answered. Naomi had researched them carefully. Former FBI agents. Reputation for discretion. Excellent reviews from lawyers she knew professionally. I need to hire an investigator, she said, for a domestic case. She met with Thomas Chin himself 2 hours later in his downtown office. He was in his 50s, calm and professional, and he didn't waste time with sympathy or judgment. Tell me what you know, he said. Naomi laid it out. The pattern of late nights. The hidden gifts. Christmas Day. The apartment building. The woman in the red sweater. I need everything, she said. How long it's been happening. Where they meet. What he's spending. Who knows about it. All of it. Chin nodded. I'll need recent photos of your husband. License plate numbers. His routine. I have all that. Naomi pulled out a folder she'd prepared. I also need something else. I work in HR. I know how corporate investigations work. If he's spending company money on personal expenses, that's fraud. I need you to look at his corporate accounts and travel records. Chin raised an eyebrow. That's more complicated. We'd need access. I can get you access. Naomi opened her laptop and pulled up Julian's calendar, which synced to their shared family account. He uses the same password for everything. He thinks I don't know it. Mrs. Bennett? I'm not breaking any laws, Naomi said firmly. These are family accounts. Joint property. And if he's embezzling from his company, they have a right to know. I'm not doing this to hurt him. I'm doing this because I have a right to know what my husband has been doing with our money and our lives. Chin studied her for a moment. You're very calm. I cried enough on Christmas, Naomi said. Now I'm working. She hired him that afternoon. Retained a divorce attorney named Rebecca Torres, who had a reputation for aggressive representation. Opened a new bank account at a different bank using her own credentials. Started routing her paycheck there. At home she was perfect. She smiled at Julian. Asked about his day. Made dinner. Went to bed at reasonable hours. They even had sex twice that week. Mechanical and cold on her part, though Julian didn't seem to notice the difference. But while he slept, Naomi worked. She photographed every document in his home office using her phone scanner app, saving them to a secure cloud account. Bank statements. Investment records. Property deeds. Tax returns. She found financial records going back 7 years. She also found the prenuptial agreement they'd signed before getting married. Julian's father had insisted on it. At the time, Naomi had been hurt but understanding. The Bennett family had money and they wanted to protect it. Now she read through every clause carefully. The prenup was time-limited. After 10 years of marriage, it became void and Maryland's standard divorce laws would apply. They were 9 years and 3 months in. Julian would owe her significantly more if they made it to the 10-year mark. She wondered if he knew that. If that was part of his timeline. If he'd been planning to leave her before the anniversary that would cost him millions. The thought made her jaw clench. But she kept working. Chin called 3 days into the investigation. I have preliminary findings. You should sit down. Naomi was in her car outside a grocery store. I'm ready. The affair has been ongoing for approximately 3 years, Chin said. The woman's name is Colette Davis. Age 28. She works at Bennett Technologies as a marketing coordinator. Of course she did. Julian owned Bennett Technologies. He could control everything about her employment. He purchased a condominium for her 18 months ago, Chin continued. Uses corporate funds to cover the mortgage through an LLC he created. The company pays for her car lease, her credit cards, and monthly cash transfers of approximately $5,000. Naomi's vision went white at the edges. 3 years. 3 years of lies while she'd been faithful, supportive, devoted. There's more, Chin said quietly. I've interviewed some contacts at Bennett Technologies. Discreetly. Your husband has been telling business partners and board members that you're difficult. that the marriage is ending, that he's waiting for the right time to file for divorce. The right time. After the 10-year mark. After the prenup became worthless. How much has he spent on her? Naomi asked. Conservatively, $800,000 over 3 years. Most of it from company accounts disguised as business expenses. $800,000. Money stolen from his own company, from shareholders, from employees. While Naomi had been budgeting their household expenses, saying no to small purchases, trying to be responsible. Can you prove it? She asked. I can prove all of it. The question is what you want to do with the information. Naomi looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. She looked tired. Older than her 36 years. But her eyes were clear. I want copies of everything, she said. Bank records, receipts, photos, recordings. Everything that would hold up in court and in a criminal investigation. Criminal? $800,000 in corporate fraud? The SEC would be very interested in that. So would his board of directors. Chin was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Bennet, are you sure? This will destroy his career. He destroyed our marriage, Naomi said flatly. For 3 years he lied to me every single day. He stole from his company. He committed fraud. I'm not doing anything to him. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. Understood, Chin said. I'll have everything compiled within 2 weeks. Naomi hung up and sat in her car, breathing carefully. 3 years. While she'd been planning anniversary trips, supporting his business decisions, hosting company parties, believing they were partners. She drove home and cooked dinner. Julian came home at 8, kissed her cheek, complimented the meal. How was your day? He asked. Fine, Naomi said. Yours? Long. But good. He was probably texting Colette under the table. Probably planning their next meeting. Probably laughing at how easy it was to deceive his wife. Naomi ate her dinner and smiled and made conversation. And while she did, she thought about the encrypted folder growing larger on her computer. About the case being built. About the moment when everything would come crashing down around him. She could wait. She was good at waiting now. The private investigator's full report arrived 2 weeks later via encrypted email. Naomi waited until Julian left for a morning meeting, then opened it on her laptop at the kitchen table. The file was over 200 pages. She started reading. Colette Davis. Born in Richmond, Virginia. Bachelor's degree in marketing from Virginia Commonwealth University. Started at Bennett Technologies 4 years ago as an assistant, promoted to coordinator after 1 year. Coincidentally, 1 year into her employment was when the affair began. There were photographs. Dozens of them. Julian and Colette at restaurants. Entering hotels. Walking in the park holding hands. One particularly damning photo showed them at a business conference in Miami. Julian had told Naomi he was going alone. The photo was dated 6 months ago. Colette wore a red dress and smiled at the camera while Julian's arm was around her waist. Naomi had been home that week recovering from the flu. The financial records were worse. Chen's team had traced every transaction with meticulous detail. The condo purchase in Colette's name, down payment of $200,000 from a Bennett Technologies subsidiary account, labeled Marketing Investment Property. The BMW lease, paid monthly through company credit cards, logged as Executive Vehicle for Client Entertainment. The American Express card in Colette's name, with Julian as the account holder, showing purchases at high-end stores, restaurants, spas. Every charge coded as business expenses. But the most devastating part was the electronic communications. Chen had obtained email records through a contact at Bennett Technologies, someone who'd grown concerned about financial irregularities and was willing to cooperate with what they thought was an internal audit. The emails went back 3 years. They started professional, then became flirtatious, then explicit. Naomi forced herself to read them. Julian talking about his marriage. My wife doesn't understand me anymore. She's so focused on her career that we barely connect. I married too young before I knew what I really wanted. All lies. Naomi had been supportive of his business. Had attended every company event. Had listened to his problems and offered solutions. Had loved him completely. There were emails where Julian discussed divorce strategy with Colette. We just need to wait until after the 10-year anniversary. The prenup expires then and I'll have more flexibility with the settlement. Once that's done, we can be together openly. Naomi read that line 5 times. He'd been planning to divorce her. Had a timeline. Was waiting specifically to avoid paying her what she was entitled to under the prenup. She kept reading. Other emails detailed business decisions. Julian had promoted Colette twice, giving her raises far beyond standard compensation for her role. He'd put her on projects with high visibility. He'd promised her a vice president position, once things settled down at home. He was planning a future with this woman, using company money to fund it, lying to his board, his employees, his wife. Naomi closed the laptop and walked to the bathroom. She thought she might be sick, but when she looked in the mirror, she just looked angry. Her phone rang. Rebecca Torres, her attorney. "I got the report from Chin," Rebecca said. "We need to meet. Today if possible." They met at Rebecca's office at 3 o'clock. Rebecca was in her 40s, sharp-featured, with kind eyes behind stylish glasses. She'd built her reputation on high-stakes divorce cases where one party had significantly more money and power. "This is one of the most well-documented cases I've seen," Rebecca said, spreading papers across her conference table. "You have enough here for divorce, civil fraud charges, and a whistleblower report to the SEC." "All three," Naomi said. "Are you certain?" "The SEC investigation will be public. It will destroy his career. He destroyed our marriage for 3 years while planning to divorce me in a way that would minimize what I'm owed legally. He stole hundreds of thousands from his own company. He slandered me to business partners." Naomi's voice was steady. "I want all of it public." Rebecca nodded slowly. "Then here's what we do. We file for divorce with full disclosure of the affair and financial misconduct. We file a civil suit for damages based on his theft of marital assets. And we submit a detailed report to the SEC about the corporate fraud. All on the same day. How long until we're ready?" 2 weeks. "I want to review everything thoroughly, prepare airtight documentation, and coordinate with the SEC contact to ensure they take it seriously." Rebecca paused. "Naomi, I have to ask, are you prepared for the fallout? This will be ugly. They'll fight back. Your personal life will be exposed." "My personal life is already exposed," Naomi said quietly. "I just didn't know it yet. Everyone at his company knew he was cheating on me. Business partners knew. Probably people in our social circle knew. I was the only one still believing our marriage was real." "What about your job? Will this affect your position?" Naomi had thought about that carefully. TechVision Solutions and Bennett Technologies were competitors. There would be questions about conflicts of interest, about whether she'd used her position to gather intelligence. "I've documented everything carefully," Naomi said. "I used no company resources from TechVision. All information came from joint marital accounts or from a licensed investigator. I'm reporting fraud I discovered as a spouse, not as a competitor. My company's legal department reviewed my approach, without revealing specifics, and confirmed I'm not violating any employment agreements." She'd spent hours with TechVision's general counsel, asking hypothetical questions about reporting fraud, about separation of personal and professional knowledge. She'd been careful. Very careful. "Then we proceed," Rebecca said. "But I want you to prepare for something. When we file, there will be a period of days, maybe weeks, where your life feels out of control. Media attention. Public scrutiny. Your husband will likely try to negotiate, threaten, or manipulate. You need to stay strong." "I will," Naomi said. That night, Julian came home with flowers. Yellow roses. Her favorite, he claimed, though her favorite was actually tulips. He'd never paid enough attention to remember. "Just wanted to remind you that I love you," he said, smiling. Naomi put the roses in water and smiled back. She wondered if Colette had ended things with him. If he sensed something shifting. If he was trying to secure his home base. It didn't matter. In 2 weeks, his world would shatter. And Naomi would be standing in the wreckage, finally free. Naomi spent the next 2 weeks methodically preparing for the moment that would change everything. She'd learned from her work in HR that the key to winning difficult conflicts was preparation, documentation, and strategic timing. She started with her finances. Every paycheck now went to her separate account. She transferred money from their joint savings, exactly half, nothing more, into her personal account. She documented every transfer with screenshots and saved them to her encrypted cloud storage. If Julian accused her of stealing, she could prove she'd only taken what was rightfully hers. She compiled a comprehensive inventory of their assets. The house, purchased before they married, was in Julian's name. But Maryland was an equitable distribution state. She was entitled to compensation for the marriage's economic partnership, especially given his fraud. The cars, the vacation home in Rehoboth Beach, the investment accounts, the retirement funds. She created spreadsheets listing everything with estimated values and documentation. She also changed passwords. Her email, her laptop, her phone, her credit cards. She stored digital copies of important documents, passport, birth certificate, social security card, marriage license, in multiple secure locations. She scanned photo albums and saved them digitally. She moved sentimental items from the house to a storage unit she'd rented under her name. At work, she was flawless. She arrived early, stayed late, and exceeded every expectation. She volunteered for high-profile projects. She strengthened relationships with executives. She made herself indispensable. Because she knew what was coming. When the story broke about her husband's fraud and affair, people would watch her carefully. Would she fall apart? Would she become a liability? Or would she prove she was a professional capable of separating personal drama from work performance? She planned to show them the second option. She also began networking differently. She attended business luncheons and conferences she'd previously skipped, too busy supporting Julian's career. She reconnected with college friends, former colleagues, mentors. She built a support system that had nothing to do with her marriage. At home, she maintained perfect normalcy. She cooked dinner, asked about Julian's day, made conversation. She even attended a company party for Bennett Technologies, smiling and chatting with people who probably knew about Colette. She wore a navy dress and diamond earrings and looked like the perfect executive wife. Colette was there. Naomi saw her across the room, young, pretty, confident. She laughed at something someone said, and Julian glanced at her. Their eyes met for just a moment before he looked away. Naomi watched it happen. Felt nothing. She wasn't hurt anymore. She was just observing, gathering information, waiting. Rebecca Torres called her into the office 1 week before filing date. "We need to discuss your goals," Rebecca said. "What do you actually want from this divorce?" Naomi had thought about that question carefully. "I want a fair financial settlement," she said. "Enough to rebuild my life independently. I don't want the house, too many memories. But I want compensation for the 9 years I invested in this marriage. I want my retirement funds and half of everything we accumulated together." "That's reasonable. What else?" "I want his fraud exposed. I want the SEC investigation. I want Bennett Technologies to know he stole from them." Naomi paused. "And I want my reputation protected. I don't want to be seen as the bitter ex-wife. I want people to know I discovered fraud and reported it because it was the right thing to do." "That's manageable. We'll position you as a whistleblower acting in good faith, not a spouse seeking revenge." "Good. Because that's the truth." Rebecca leaned forward. "What about him? Do you want to hurt him?" Naomi considered that. Did she want Julian to suffer? To lose everything? To feel the pain she'd felt sitting in that parking garage on Christmas morning? "No," she said finally. "I don't want to hurt him. I want consequences for his actions. I want the truth revealed. I want justice. But I don't want revenge. I just want to be free." Rebecca smiled slightly. "That's a healthy perspective. Though I should warn you, the consequences of his actions will hurt him significantly. His career will likely end. His reputation will be destroyed. Are you prepared for him to blame you? He can blame me all he wants. I didn't force him to have an affair. I didn't force him to embezzle $800,000. I didn't force him to lie for 3 years." Naomi's voice was firm. "He made choices. Now he gets to live with them." The final piece of preparation was personal. Naomi met with a therapist, Dr. Patricia Freeman, who specialized in trauma recovery. She needed to talk to someone about what she discovered, about the anger and grief and confusion churning inside her. "I feel guilty," Naomi admitted during their second session. "Like I should have known. Like I should have seen the signs earlier." "That's common," Dr. Freeman said gently. "But deception is a choice the deceiver makes. Your husband worked hard to hide his affair. He lied to you systematically. You trusted your spouse, which is normal and healthy. His betrayal doesn't reflect on your intelligence or awareness." "Everyone else seemed to know," Naomi said. "People at his company. Probably our friends. I was the only one in the dark. And that was cruel of them not to tell you. But again, that's not your failure. That's their failure." The sessions helped. Not because the pain disappeared, it didn't, but because Dr. Freeman gave her tools to process the emotions without being consumed by them. Breathing exercises, perspective shifts, ways to separate Julian's choices from her own worth. "You're about to enter a very difficult period," Dr. Freeman said before their final pre-filing session. "When you serve him with papers and the investigation begins, he'll likely try various tactics. Anger, blame, guilt, promises, maybe threats. You need to stay grounded in the facts." "I will," Naomi promised. The night before the filing date, Naomi couldn't sleep. She lay in bed next to Julian, listening to him breathe, thinking about how he'd spent 3 years lying to her in this very bed. About how many times he'd promised he loved her while planning to leave her. About how he'd stolen from his company to fund a life with someone else. She thought about the woman she'd been on Christmas morning, hurt, confused, devastated. She wasn't that woman anymore. At 6 a.m. she got up, showered, and put on her favorite charcoal suit. Professional. Powerful. Ready. Today everything changed. And she was finally prepared. Valentine's Day arrived cold and bright. Naomi woke at 5 in the morning, showered, and dressed carefully in a tailored black pantsuit. She applied makeup precisely, did her hair in a neat bun. Professional. Controlled. Unbreakable. Julian was still asleep when she went downstairs at 6:30. She made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and reviewed the documents one final time. Rebecca Torres had messengered everything to the house yesterday. Divorce petition. Civil fraud complaint. Sworn statements. Financial records. Photos. Emails. Everything. At 7:15 Rebecca called. Ready? Yes, Naomi said. The process server will arrive at your house at 7 tonight. The SEC received our whistleblower report this morning, and they've already begun preliminary review. Bennett Technologies board will be notified by 5 p.m. Everything is coordinated. Thank you. Naomi, listen to me. When he's served tonight, he'll react strongly. Probably anger first, then bargaining. Don't engage. Don't argue. Just let him read the papers and then have him leave the house. I'll be available by phone the entire evening. I understand. Naomi hung up and finished her coffee. Julian came downstairs at 7:30, already dressed for work. Happy Valentine's Day, he said, kissing her cheek. Naomi smiled. You too. He left at 8. She watched him drive away, then made her own preparations. She packed 2 suitcases with clothes and essentials. Loaded them in her car. Changed the locks. She'd already arranged for a locksmith to come at 4 p.m. Packed up her personal items from the bedroom and home office. Removed her name from all joint utilities. By the time Julian came home, this would no longer be her house. At 9 she drove to work. She'd taken tomorrow off but wanted to be there today, maintaining normalcy. She attended meetings, responded to emails, reviewed performance evaluations. Her assistant commented that she seemed calm. Big day, Naomi said vaguely. At 4:30 Rebecca texted, Bennett Technologies board just received our report. Julian was called into an emergency meeting 30 minutes ago. Naomi's heart beat faster. She wondered what he was thinking right now. If he understood yet. If he'd figured out who'd exposed him. At 5:15, he left the board meeting early. Building security says he looked furious. Process server is ready at your house. Naomi left work at 5:30. She drove home carefully, hands steady on the wheel. The locksmith had already changed the locks. New keys waited in an envelope on her car seat. She kept one set and put the others in Rebecca's office safe. She parked in the driveway at 6:45. The house lights were on. Julian was already home. She could see him through the window, pacing in the living room, phone to his ear. At exactly 7 p.m., a silver sedan pulled up. A woman in her 40s got out, carrying a manila envelope. Naomi opened the front door. He's inside. I'll show you. They walked in together. Julian stood in the foyer, still on the phone. He looked at Naomi, then at the woman beside her. His face changed. I'll call you back, he said into the phone. Julian Bennett? The process server asked. Yes. These are for you. She handed him the envelope. He took it, opened it, started reading. Naomi watched his face go from confusion to shock to rage. He flipped through pages, reading faster and faster. The petition for divorce. The fraud allegations. The financial documentation. The photos of him and Colette. The emails. Everything. What is this? His voice was strangled. Legal service, the process server said calmly. You've been served. She turned to Naomi. Ma'am, you have my card if you need anything. She left. The door closed. Naomi and Julian stood in the foyer, 3 feet apart. Naomi. His voice shook. What the hell is this? Exactly what it says. Divorce papers. A civil fraud suit. Evidence of your affair and embezzlement. You don't? He was breathing hard, face flushed. This is insane. You're trying to destroy me. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm reporting fraud. I'm ending our marriage. Those are separate actions. Fraud? I didn't commit fraud. You stole $800,000 from Bennett Technologies to fund your affair. That's embezzlement. The SEC received a full report this morning. Your board was notified this afternoon. I assume that's why they called you in. Julian's face went white. You reported me to the SEC? Yes. You reported me to my own board? Yes. Why? He stepped toward her, and Naomi moved back instinctively. Why would you do that? Because it's the truth, she said calmly. You committed fraud. You had an affair for 3 years. You lied to me every single day while planning to divorce me after our 10-year anniversary so you could avoid the prenup obligations. How did you? He stopped. Looked at the papers again. You hired a private investigator. You've been spying on me. I've been gathering evidence of your crimes. This is revenge. His voice rose. You're angry about Colette, so you're trying to ruin my life. No, Julian. You ruined your own life. You made choices. You broke laws. I'm just making sure there are consequences. He stared at her like she was a stranger. I can explain everything. The money, the affair, all of it. Just give me a chance. Let me explain. I don't want explanations. I want a divorce. Baby, please. His voice cracked. We can work this out. I made mistakes. I'll fix them. I'll end things with Colette. We can go to counseling. Please don't do this. Naomi felt nothing. No sympathy, no wavering, nothing. This man had lied to her for 3 years, had planned to discard her, had stolen from his company and used that money to fund a life with someone else. You spent Christmas morning with her, Naomi said quietly, while I sat alone in our house cooking dinner for 2. You gave her the bracelet I saw you hide. You held her and kissed her and came home to me like nothing happened. That was when I knew we were done. Julian's eyes widened. You knew? Since Christmas. Since Christmas. And you've been planning this whole time? Gathering evidence, building a case. Yes. That's psychotic, he shouted. You've been lying to me for weeks. I learned from the best, Naomi said flatly. He looked at her for a long moment. Then his expression changed, hardened. You think you're so smart. You think you've won. But I'll fight this. I'll fight the divorce, the lawsuit, all of it. I have better lawyers than you. More money. More connections. You have fraud charges and an SEC investigation. Your board put you on leave today. I'm guessing by tomorrow they'll terminate you. You'll lose your position, your reputation, and probably face criminal charges. So yes, fight all you want. I have the evidence. I have the truth. And I have nothing left to lose. Julian's jaw worked. I loved you. No, Naomi said. You loved what I did for you. You loved having a supportive wife while you built your career. You loved the image of our marriage. But you didn't love me. If you'd loved me, you wouldn't have done any of this. She picked up her purse from the hall table. I'm leaving now. You need to leave too. I've changed the locks. Your belongings will be inventoried and stored. You'll get a list. Don't contact me except through my attorney. Don't come to my workplace. Don't show up anywhere I might be. If you do, I'll file a restraining order. You can't kick me out of my own house. It's a marital asset in an active divorce proceeding. Rebecca already filed an emergency motion for exclusive occupancy based on your financial misconduct. We have a hearing on Friday, but for now, you need to find somewhere else to stay. This is illegal. No, it's really not. Read the papers. Rebecca explained everything very clearly. She walked toward the door. Julian grabbed her arm. Not hard, but enough to stop her. Let go, Naomi said. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. Let go of my arm or I'm calling the police. He released her immediately. Naomi opened the door and walked out into the cold February night. She got in her car, started the engine, and drove away. In her rearview mirror, she saw Julian standing in the doorway of the house they'd shared for 9 years, papers in his hand, watching her leave. She drove to the hotel she'd booked that morning. Checked in. Went up to her room. Sat on the bed. Then finally she cried. Not because she was sad. Not because she missed him. But because it was over. The lying, the pretending, the painful discovery. All of it was over. She was free. The news broke the next morning. Naomi woke up in her hotel room to 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. She scrolled through them with her coffee, watching the story unfold in real time. Bennett Technologies had issued a statement at 6 a.m. Julian Bennett has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation into alleged financial irregularities. The company is cooperating fully with federal regulators. The business press picked it up immediately. By 8 a.m., headlines appeared across major outlets. Tech CEO under investigation for embezzlement. Bennett Technologies founder accused of corporate fraud. SEC investigating prominent entrepreneur. Naomi's phone buzzed. Rebecca Torres. Have you seen the coverage? Yes. How are you feeling? Fine. Is this normal? For a case this high profile? Absolutely. Julian Bennett is a known figure in the tech industry. This is news. Rebecca paused. Your name isn't mentioned in any of the stories yet. We may be able to keep it that way if the focus stays on the corporate fraud angle. But by noon, someone had leaked the connection. New headlines: Bennett Technologies CEO accused by wife of affair and embezzlement. Divorce filing reveals 3-year affair with employee. Naomi's phone exploded. Friends she hadn't heard from in years. Colleagues asking if she was okay. Former classmates sending sympathy messages. Everyone wanted details, wanted to know the story, wanted to be part of the drama. She ignored most of them. Responded politely to people she actually cared about. Thank you for thinking of me. I'm okay. Taking things one day at a time. Her mother called from Florida. Baby, I saw the news. Why didn't you tell me? I needed to handle it myself first, Mom. You should have told me. I would have helped. I know. But I needed to do this my way. Her mother was quiet for a moment. Are you okay? Really? I'm better than okay, Naomi said, and realized it was true. I'm finally moving forward. The media attention was intense but manageable. Rebecca had prepared her for it. Don't talk to reporters, she'd advised. Don't comment on social media. Don't engage. Let the facts speak for themselves. Naomi followed that advice strictly. When a reporter called her cell phone, how had they gotten the number? She said, I have no comment. Please contact my attorney. When journalists showed up at her office building, she walked past them without stopping. But the story kept growing. More details emerged. Someone leaked emails between Julian and Colette. Screenshots appeared on gossip websites. Photos of them together at restaurants, conferences, vacation spots. The court of public opinion was swift. Julian's social media accounts filled with angry comments. Cheater. Thief. Disgrace. Some people blamed Naomi. She should have known. This is revenge. But most of the commentary supported her. She did the right thing. She's brave for speaking up. Justice for honest wives. Naomi didn't read most of it. She didn't need public validation. She knew what she'd done and why. The hardest part was work. She returned to TechVision Solutions the day after the news broke, prepared for awkwardness. Her colleagues treated her with exaggerated gentleness, like she might shatter. Conversations stopped when she entered rooms. People whispered. Her boss, CEO Graham Marshall, called her into his office. Naomi, take all the time you need. We can redistribute your projects. No, she said firmly. I'm fine. I want to work. Are you sure? This is a difficult situation. It is. But I'm handling it. I'd prefer to maintain my normal schedule. Graham studied her. Okay. But if you change your mind, let me know. She threw herself into work. Staying late, volunteering for difficult projects, proving she could separate her personal crisis from her professional performance. Within a week, the whispers diminished. People saw she wasn't broken, wasn't falling apart, was actually more focused than ever. The Bennett Technologies board terminated Julian 2 weeks after the investigation began. The formal announcement was brief. Following a thorough review, the board has accepted Julian Bennett's resignation effective immediately. An interim CEO has been appointed. Resignation. As if he'd chosen to leave. Naomi knew better. They'd fired him to avoid criminal liability for the company. Cut him loose before the SEC charges came down. Julian tried to contact her 17 times in those 2 weeks. Phone calls, emails, texts, even showing up at places he thought she might be. Each time, she documented it and sent it to Rebecca, who sent cease and desist letters. Eventually, he stopped. But Colette Davis didn't stop. She called Naomi's office number one afternoon. I need to talk to you, Colette said when Naomi answered. We have nothing to discuss. Please. Just 5 minutes. I can explain. Explain what? How you had an affair with my husband for 3 years. How you accepted money stolen from his company. How you helped him lie to me. Naomi's voice was ice. There's nothing to explain. And we're done talking. Don't contact me again. She hung up. Blocked the number. That evening, Colette tried email. I know you hate me. I understand. But I need you to know I didn't know about the fraud. Julian told me the money was his, that it was legal. I never meant to hurt you. Naomi deleted it without responding. She didn't care about Colette's excuses. Didn't care if she was sorry or scared or regretful. That woman had slept with her husband, had accepted gifts bought with stolen money, had laughed at company parties while Naomi smiled, unaware. Colette could live with her choices the same way Julian could live with his. The divorce proceeded quickly. Julian's lawyers tried various tactics, questioning the evidence, claiming Naomi had violated privacy laws, suggesting she'd acted out of revenge rather than legitimate concern. But Rebecca shot down every argument with documented proof and legal precedent. The financial discovery was devastating. Julian's net worth had decreased significantly. The legal fees alone were draining his accounts. He'd lost his job. His reputation was destroyed. Investment opportunities had disappeared. People who'd once courted his business now avoided him. Naomi felt no satisfaction in his fall. Just a quiet sense of closure. He'd made choices. Now he faced consequences. 3 weeks after filing, she walked through the house one final time. Julian had removed his belongings. The space felt empty, hollow. She looked at the Christmas tree corner, remembering when she'd learned the truth. Walked through the bedroom where he'd lied to her. Stood in the kitchen where they'd pretended everything was fine. This house had been full of deception. She didn't want it. She signed the papers transferring ownership to Julian's estate. He'd keep the house, she'd take equivalent value in cash and investments. Fair. Clean. Done. As she drove away, she didn't look back. The SEC deposition was scheduled for March 15th, 6 weeks after filing. Naomi prepared meticulously, working with Rebecca and the agency's investigators to review every detail of her evidence. She arrived at the federal building at 9 a.m. wearing a navy suit and minimal jewelry. Professional. Credible. Composed. The conference room was formal, long table, recording equipment, attorneys everywhere. Julian's lawyers sat on one side, glaring. SEC investigators on the other. Rebecca beside Naomi. Please state your name for the record, the lead investigator said. Naomi and Bennett. And your relationship to Julian Bennett? I'm his wife. We're currently separated with divorce proceedings ongoing. For the next 4 hours they questioned her. How she discovered the affair. When she hired the private investigator. What evidence she found. Her understanding of Bennett Technologies' financial structure. The timeline of Julian's relationship with Colette Davis. Naomi answered every question directly and clearly. She didn't editorialize. Didn't express emotion. Just presented facts, backed by documentation. And when did you first suspect financial misconduct? An investigator asked. When I reviewed our joint credit card statements and saw charges for purchases I never made. A bracelet. Jewelry. Clothes. I cross-referenced the dates with Julian's calendar and realized they corresponded to his time with Ms. Davis. What made you suspect corporate fraud specifically? The amounts were too large to come from our personal accounts. I manage our household finances. I knew what we had available. When I saw $800,000 in unexplained expenses over 3 years, I realized it had to be coming from somewhere else. And you hired a private investigator? Yes. Thomas Chin of Chin Investigations. I wanted professional documentation rather than relying solely on my own observations. Why did you report your findings to the SEC rather than handling this privately through divorce proceedings? This was the crucial question. The one that determined whether she was a whistleblower acting in good faith or a vengeful spouse weaponizing regulations. Naomi looked directly at the investigator. Because I work in human resources. I understand corporate ethics. When I realized my husband had embezzled company funds, I had an obligation to report it. $800,000 stolen from Bennett Technologies affects shareholders, employees, investors, people beyond just my marriage. If I'd stayed silent, I would have been complicit. That wasn't acceptable to me. Did you consider personal revenge a motivating factor? No. My motivation was legal and ethical obligation. The affair hurt me personally. The fraud hurt others professionally. I reported it because it was the right thing to do, regardless of my relationship to Julian Bennett. Julian's attorney jumped in. Mrs. Bennett, isn't it true that you've benefited significantly from this investigation? Your divorce settlement will be much larger now that your husband has lost his job and reputation. The divorce settlement is based on marital assets and Maryland law. I'm entitled to fair compensation regardless of the fraud investigation. The two matters are separate. But you admit you stand to gain from his downfall. I stand to gain my freedom from a fraudulent marriage. Everything else is simply the natural consequence of his own actions. Rebecca smiled slightly. Naomi was doing exactly what they'd practiced, staying calm, sticking to facts, refusing to be baited. The questioning continued through lunch and into the afternoon. They reviewed emails, financial records, photographs, timelines. They challenged her memory, her motives, her methods. Naomi answered every question with the same steady precision. At 4 p.m., the lead investigator leaned back. "Mrs. Bennett, thank you for your cooperation. Your testimony has been extremely valuable. Happy to help." Outside the building, Rebecca gripped her shoulder. "That was perfect. You were perfect. They'll recommend charges." "How can you tell?" "The way they ask questions. They're building a criminal case and you gave them everything they needed." 3 days later, the Washington Post ran a feature story about the case. Not tabloid gossip. Serious investigative journalism. They'd interviewed former Bennett Technologies employees who described Julian's relationship with Colette, detailed the company's financial practices, quoted anonymous board members who claimed they'd had concerns but been overruled. The article portrayed Naomi sympathetically. A corporate HR executive who discovered her husband's affair and, in investigating it, uncovered significant fraud. Her decision to report it demonstrated integrity and professional ethics. The public response was overwhelmingly positive. LinkedIn requests flooded in. Business publications reached out for interviews. 3 companies approached her about speaking engagements on corporate ethics. Naomi was surprised by the attention. She hadn't expected to become a public figure. But Rebecca advised her to embrace it carefully. "This is your narrative now," Rebecca said. "You're not the wronged wife. You're the professional who did the right thing despite personal cost." That's powerful. Naomi agreed to one interview with Forbes. The journalist, a woman in her 40s, met her at a quiet cafe. "Why are you willing to talk now?" the journalist asked. "Because the facts are public. Because I think my story might help other people in similar situations. And because I want to control my own narrative rather than letting others define me." "What do you want people to know?" Naomi thought carefully. "That you can be hurt and still be strong. That doing the right thing doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it's worth it in the long run. That marriage vows matter, but so do professional ethics and personal integrity. Do you regret reporting your husband?" "No. I regret that he put me in a position where I had to make that choice. But given the circumstances, I'd do exactly the same thing again." The article ran 2 weeks later under the headline, "Naomi Bennett, the HR executive who chose ethics over marriage." It was fair, balanced, and portrayed her as thoughtful rather than vindictive. 3 women's business organizations invited her to speak. 2 university ethics programs asked her to guest lecture. A publisher inquired about a book. Naomi was building something she hadn't anticipated, a reputation entirely separate from Julian. A professional identity based on her own choices, her own values, her own strength. The woman who'd sat in a parking garage on Christmas morning would barely recognize her now. And that felt exactly right. Spring arrived with warm sun and cherry blossoms, and Naomi felt like she was waking up after years of sleep. The divorce finalized in late April. Fair settlement, no drama at the end. Julian's lawyers had advised him to accept the terms rather than fight. He'd lost too much already. Fighting would only make it worse. Naomi received a settlement of $3.2 million, half of their marital assets, plus restitution for the money Julian had stolen during the marriage. She also kept her retirement accounts and received alimony for 3 years. Was fair. She'd invested 9 years in the marriage. This was what she was owed. She bought a townhouse in Arlington. 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen, small backyard. Nothing like the mansion in Potomac. But it was hers. Every piece of furniture she chose. Every paint color. Every decision made without considering anyone else's preferences. She hired a decorator, a young woman named Talia who understood her vision. "I want it clean," Naomi said. "Simple. Bright. No heavy furniture, no dark colors. I want to feel light when I walk in." Talia delivered exactly that. White walls, pale wood floors, furniture in gray and blue. Large windows letting in natural light. Plants everywhere, ferns, succulents, a fiddle leaf fig in the corner. The space felt fresh, optimistic, new. Naomi stood in her living room the day after moving in and felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. At work, opportunities opened up. Graham Marshall called her into his office one Monday morning in May. "We're creating a new position," he said. "Chief People Officer. Overseeing all HR functions plus corporate culture, ethics, and compliance. I want you for the role." Naomi's breath caught. That's a significant promotion. You've earned it. Your work has been exceptional. And frankly, your handling of your personal situation demonstrated exactly the kind of integrity we want in leadership. He paused. The board approved a 25% raise and equity package. Interested? Absolutely. She started the new role in June. Bigger office, larger team, strategic influence. She implemented new ethics training programs, strengthened harassment reporting systems, created mentorship programs for women in tech. The work was fulfilling in ways she hadn't expected. She was building something, making real changes, using what she'd learned from her marriage to help other people navigate difficult situations. But beyond work, she was building something else, a business. The idea came from the speaking engagements. After her fourth talk at a women's leadership conference, 3 different women approached her asking for advice. How to document workplace harassment. How to report financial misconduct. How to protect yourself while doing the right thing. Naomi realized there was a need. People facing ethical dilemmas at work needed guidance, but they didn't know where to turn. HR departments had conflicts of interest. Law firms were expensive. Regular consultants didn't understand the emotional complexity. She could fill that gap. In July, she registered Bennett Consulting Group. She kept her married name professionally because it was known now, and changing it felt like running away. The consulting firm specialized in workplace ethics, compliance training, and support for whistleblowers. She hired 2 employees initially, a former attorney named Rochelle who specialized in employment law, and a former HR director named Christopher who'd left corporate life after witnessing misconduct he wasn't allowed to address. They shared Naomi's values and vision. She rented small office space in downtown DC. 3 rooms, simple furniture, a professional but not corporate feel. The kind of place where someone scared and confused could walk in and feel safe. Word spread quickly. Her Forbes profile brought clients. Her speaking engagements generated interest. Companies hired her to review their ethics programs. Individuals hired her to help document workplace problems. Law firms referred clients who needed HR expertise. By September, Bennett Consulting Group had 7 employees and a wait list of clients. Naomi worked 14-hour days and loved every minute. This was hers. Built from nothing, based on her values, helping people who needed exactly what she'd needed during her darkest time. But she wasn't only working. She was also rebuilding herself. Naomi was building something she hadn't anticipated. A reputation entirely separate from Julian. A professional identity based on her own choices, her own values, her own strength. The woman who'd sat in a parking garage on Christmas morning would barely recognize her now. And that felt exactly right. Spring arrived with warm sun and cherry blossoms, and Naomi felt like she was waking up after years of sleep. The divorce finalized in late April. Fair settlement, no drama at the end. Julian's lawyers had advised him to accept the terms rather than fight. He'd lost too much already. Fighting would only make it worse. Naomi received a settlement of $3.2 million, half of their marital assets, plus restitution for the money Julian had stolen during the marriage. She also kept her retirement accounts and received alimony for 3 years. It was fair. She'd invested 9 years in the marriage. This was what she was owed. She bought a townhouse in Arlington. 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen, small backyard. Nothing like the mansion in Potomac. But it was hers. Every piece of furniture she chose. Every paint color. Every decision made without considering anyone else's preferences. She hired a decorator, a young woman named Talia who understood her vision. I want it clean, Naomi said. Simple. Bright. No heavy furniture, no dark colors. I want to feel light when I walk in. Talia delivered exactly that. White walls, pale wood floors, furniture in gray and blue. Large windows letting in natural light. Plants everywhere, ferns, succulents, a fiddle leaf fig in the corner. The space felt fresh, optimistic, new. Naomi stood in her living room the day after moving in and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. At work, opportunities opened up. Graham Marshall called her into his office one Monday morning in May. We're creating a new position, he said. Chief People Officer. Overseeing all HR functions plus corporate culture, ethics, and compliance. I want you for the role. Naomi's breath caught. That's a significant promotion. You've earned it. Your work has been exceptional. And frankly, your handling of your personal situation demonstrated exactly the kind of integrity we want in leadership. He paused. The board approved a 25% raise and equity package. Interested? Absolutely. She started the new role in June. Bigger office, larger team, strategic influence. She implemented new ethics training programs, strengthened harassment reporting systems, created mentorship programs for women in tech. The work was fulfilling in ways she hadn't expected. She was building something, making real changes, using what she'd learned from her marriage to help other people navigate difficult situations. But beyond work, she was building something else, a business. The idea came from the speaking engagements. After her fourth talk at a women's leadership conference, 3 different women approached her asking for advice. How to document workplace harassment. How to report financial misconduct. How to protect yourself while doing the right thing. Naomi realized there was a need. People facing ethical dilemmas at work needed guidance, but they didn't know where to turn. HR departments had conflicts of interest. Law firms were expensive. Regular consultants didn't understand the emotional complexity. She could fill that gap. In July, she registered Bennett Consulting Group. She kept her married name professionally because it was known now, and changing it felt like running away. The consulting firm specialized in workplace ethics, compliance training, and support for whistleblowers. She hired 2 employees initially, a former attorney named Rochelle who specialized in employment law, and a former HR director named Christopher who'd left corporate life after witnessing misconduct he wasn't allowed to address. They shared Naomi's values and vision. She rented small office space in downtown D.C. 3 rooms, simple furniture, a professional but not corporate feel. The kind of place where someone scared and confused could walk in and feel safe. Word spread quickly. Her Forbes profile brought clients. Her speaking engagements generated interest. Companies hired her to review their ethics programs. Individuals hired her to help document workplace problems. Law firms referred clients who needed HR expertise. By September, Bennett Consulting Group had 7 employees and a wait list of clients. Naomi worked 14-hour days and loved every minute. This was hers. Built from nothing, based on her values, helping people who needed exactly what she'd needed during her darkest time. But she wasn't only working. She was also rebuilding herself. Naomi was building something she hadn't anticipated, a reputation entirely separate from Julian. A professional identity based on her own choices, her own values, her own strength. The woman who'd sat in a parking garage on Christmas morning would barely recognize her now. And that felt exactly right. Spring arrived with warm sun and cherry blossoms, and Naomi felt like she was waking up after years of sleep. The divorce finalized in late April. Fair settlement, no drama at the end. Julian's lawyers had advised him to accept the terms rather than fight. He'd lost too much already. Fighting would only make it worse. Naomi received a settlement of $3.2 million, half of their marital assets, plus restitution for the money Julian had stolen during the marriage. She also kept her retirement accounts and received alimony for 3 years. It was fair. She'd invested 9 years in the marriage. This was what she was owed. She bought a townhouse in Arlington. 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen, small backyard. Nothing like the mansion in Potomac. But it was hers. Every piece of furniture she chose. Every paint color. Every decision made without considering anyone else's preferences. She hired a decorator, a young woman named Talia who understood her vision. I want it clean, Naomi said. Simple. Bright. No heavy furniture, no dark colors. I want to feel light when I walk in. Talia delivered exactly that. White walls, pale wood floors, furniture in gray and blue. Large windows letting in natural light. Plants everywhere, ferns, succulents, a fiddle leaf fig in the corner. The space felt fresh, optimistic, new. Naomi stood in her living room the day after moving in and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. At work, opportunities opened up. Graham Marshall called her into his office one Monday morning in May. We're creating a new position, he said. Chief People Officer. Overseeing all HR functions plus corporate culture, ethics, and compliance. I want you for the role. Naomi's breath caught. That's a significant promotion. You've earned it. Your work has been exceptional. And frankly, your handling of your personal situation demonstrated exactly the kind of integrity we want in leadership. He paused. The board approved a 25% raise and equity package. Interested? Absolutely. She started the new role in June. Bigger office, larger team, strategic influence. She implemented new ethics training programs. Strengthened harassment reporting systems. Created mentorship programs for women in tech. The work was fulfilling in ways she hadn't expected. She was building something. Making real changes. Using what she'd learned from her marriage to help other people navigate difficult situations. But beyond work, she was building something else. A business. The idea came from the speaking engagements. After her fourth talk at a women's leadership conference, 3 different women approached her asking for advice. How to document workplace harassment. How to report financial misconduct. How to protect yourself while doing the right thing. Naomi realized there was a need. People facing ethical dilemmas at work needed guidance, but they didn't know where to turn. HR departments had conflicts of interest. Law firms were expensive. Regular consultants didn't understand the emotional complexity. She could fill that gap. In July, she registered Bennett Consulting Group. She kept her married name professionally because it was known now, and changing it felt like running away. The consulting firm specialized in workplace ethics, compliance training, and support for whistleblowers. She hired 2 employees initially, a former attorney named Rochelle who specialized in employment law, and a former HR director named Christopher who'd left corporate life after witnessing misconduct he wasn't allowed to address. They shared Naomi's values and vision. She rented small office space in downtown D.C. 3 rooms, simple furniture, a professional but not corporate feel. The kind of place where someone scared and confused could walk in and feel safe. Word spread quickly. Her Forbes profile brought clients. Her speaking engagements generated interest. Companies hired her to review their ethics programs. Individuals hired her to help document workplace problems. Law firms referred clients who needed HR expertise. By September, Bennett Consulting Group had 7 employees and a wait list of clients. Naomi worked 14-hour days and loved every minute. This was hers. Built from nothing, based on her values, helping people who needed exactly what she'd needed during her darkest time. But she wasn't only working. She was also rebuilding herself. Julian's defense attorney argued he'd made accounting errors, not intentional fraud. That he'd planned to repay the money. That he'd been under stress and made poor decisions. The prosecution destroyed those arguments systematically. They showed emails where Julian discussed hiding expenses. Testimony from his own accountant who'd raised concerns and been ignored. Records proving he'd deliberately created false documentation. Colette Davis testified as part of a plea deal. She'd been charged as an accessory, accepted immunity in exchange for cooperation. She looked small on the witness stand, nervous, young. Did you know the money Julian Bennett gave you came from company accounts? The prosecutor asked. Not at first, Colette said quietly. He told me he was wealthy, that he could afford it. But eventually I saw documents. I knew something wasn't right. When did you know? About 18 months ago. I saw a statement that said Bennett Technologies on it. I asked him about it. He said it was fine that he was the CEO, that the money was his to use. Did you believe him? Colette hesitated. I wanted to. Naomi watched from the gallery and felt nothing. No anger, no sympathy, nothing. This woman had made choices too. Had accepted money she suspected was wrong. Had participated in the deception. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. Found Julian guilty on all counts. Embezzlement, wire fraud, filing false statements. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes. Mr. Bennett, you held a position of significant trust and responsibility, she said. You employed hundreds of people. Managed millions of dollars. Led a company that impacted countless lives. You violated that trust systematically and deliberately, not out of necessity but out of entitlement. You believe the rules didn't apply to you. Julian stood silently, his attorney beside him. I've considered the arguments for leniency. Your lack of prior criminal history. Your reputation in the community before these crimes. Your willingness to make restitution. But I've also considered the scale of your misconduct, the planning involved, and the impact on others. She paused. I sentence you to 4 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release, and full restitution of embezzled funds plus penalties. 4 years. It wasn't much, Naomi thought. But it was justice. And it was public. Everyone knew now what he'd done. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. They called Naomi's name as she walked down the steps. Mrs. Bennett, how do you feel about the sentence? She stopped. Looked at the cameras. Thought about the woman who'd sat in a parking garage on Christmas morning. I think justice was served, she said calmly. I hope this case reminds everyone that ethical behavior matters more than personal relationships. When you witness wrongdoing, you have an obligation to report it, regardless of the cost. That's what I did. And I'd do it again. Do you regret turning in your husband? I regret that he put me in a position where I had to make that choice. But no, I don't regret choosing integrity over loyalty to someone who'd betrayed me. She walked away. Rebecca caught up with her at the car. That was perfect, Rebecca said. I meant every word. Bennett Technologies settled their civil suit 2 weeks later. They agreed to pay Naomi $750,000 in damages, compensation for the harm Julian's fraud had caused to marital assets. It was less than she could have won at trial, but it was fair and she was ready to be done. The money went straight into Bennett Consulting Group. She hired 3 more employees, expanded the office space, and launched a nonprofit arm that provided free services to low-income whistleblowers who couldn't afford legal help. She was building an empire on the ruins of her marriage. Not because she wanted revenge, because she wanted meaning. One afternoon in December, almost a year after that Christmas morning, Naomi met Cameron Hughes for their 5th date. They'd been seeing each other slowly, carefully, building something that felt different from anything she'd experienced before. Cameron was thoughtful, patient, genuinely interested in her work and ideas. He asked questions and listened to answers. He talked about his own work designing sustainable buildings with the same passion she felt about ethics consulting. He made her laugh. He respected her independence. He never rushed her. After dinner, they walked through Georgetown in the cold, past holiday lights and window displays. Can I ask you something? Cameron said. Of course. Are you happy? Naomi thought about it. About her business, her home, her friends, her life that was finally, completely hers. Yes, she said. I really am. Good. He smiled. You deserve to be. They walked in comfortable silence. And Naomi realized something. She'd spent so long focused on justice, on revenge, on making things right. But the best revenge wasn't Julian's prison sentence or financial ruin or destroyed reputation. The best revenge was this. Walking through the city with someone kind. Building a business she believed in. Living a life that made her proud. Julian had taken 9 years from her. She'd spent 1 year taking them back. Now she was done looking backward. She was finally free. 1 year after Christmas. Naomi stood in the conference room of Bennett Consulting Group's new office space. 10,000 square feet in a downtown D.C. building with views of the monuments. 15 employees now. Major corporate clients. A waiting list for speaking engagements. A reputation as the go-to expert on workplace ethics and whistleblower protection. To success, her team said, raising glasses of champagne to celebrate the firm's 1-year anniversary. Naomi smiled. To integrity. The year had been transformative. Bennett Consulting Group had handled over 200 cases. Employees facing harassment, executives discovering fraud, HR professionals navigating ethical dilemmas. They'd helped 47 people successfully report wrongdoing. They'd trained staff at 30 major corporations. They'd changed policies, saved careers, and protected people who did the right thing. The nonprofit arm had helped 18 low-income whistleblowers for free, providing legal support, documentation assistance, and emotional counseling. Naomi had hired a full-time therapist on staff because she understood the psychological cost of standing up to corruption. She'd been profiled in Fortune, The Wall Street Journal, and Fast Company. Named to several women to watch lists. Invited to testify before Congress about corporate accountability. She'd written a book, Standing Strong, a guide to ethical decision-making in the workplace, that would publish next spring. But the professional success wasn't what made her proudest. She was proud of who she'd become. The woman who'd discovered her husband's betrayal would have crumbled, would have needed someone to save her, would have questioned her own worth. This woman, the one standing in this office surrounded by people who believed in the work they did, this woman had saved herself, had built something meaningful from devastation, had transformed pain into purpose. After the celebration, Naomi drove to her townhouse. Cameron was coming over for dinner. They'd been dating for 4 months now and it felt right. Easy. Honest. He arrived at 7 carrying flowers, tulips because he'd remembered they were her favorite. How was the anniversary party? He asked. Perfect. The team is incredible. They're incredible because you built something incredible. They cooked dinner together, pasta and salad, nothing fancy. They talked about their days, shared stories, laughed at nothing in particular. It felt normal, comfortable, real. I have something to tell you, Cameron said over dessert. Naomi looked up. Good or bad? Good. I got offered a major project. A children's hospital in Pennsylvania. 6-month contract. I'd need to be on site most of the time. That's amazing. Congratulations. It would mean we'd see each other less. I wanted to talk to you about it before accepting. Naomi reached across the table, took his hand. Cameron, this is your career. Your dream project. Of course you should take it. We'll figure out the distance. You're sure? Completely. She smiled. I spent 9 years making myself smaller to fit someone else's life. I'm not doing that anymore. We both get to be successful. We both get to pursue our goals. That's what partnership means. He kissed her hand. You're extraordinary. I'm just finally living on my own terms. Later that night, after Cameron left, Naomi sat in her living room with a cup of tea and thought about the journey. Julian was in federal prison. Would be for 3 more years. She hadn't seen him since sentencing and had no desire to. He existed somewhere in her past, irrelevant to her present. Colette had moved to another state, last Naomi heard. Worked in retail. Stayed off social media. Lived quietly with the consequences of her choices. Bennett Technologies had hired a new CEO and implemented strict ethics oversight. They'd made Naomi's case a core part of their compliance training. What happens when leadership fails, why reporting matters, how to protect whistleblowers. And Naomi? She was here. In a home she loved. Running a business that mattered. Dating someone who respected her. Living a life that reflected her values. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Saw your interview on CNBC. I'm so proud of you, baby. Naomi smiled. Replied, thank you, Mom. I'm proud of me too. Another text, this one from a client she'd worked with 6 months ago. Just wanted to let you know, I got promoted. My company implemented all the changes we recommended. Thank you for giving me the courage to speak up. These messages came regularly now. People she'd helped finding success. Living authentically. Making ethical choices because she'd shown them it was possible. That was the legacy she was building. Not revenge against Julian. Not punishment for wrongdoing. But proof that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it costs you, is worth it. Naomi stood at her window looking out at the city lights. 1 year ago, she'd watched her husband drive away to spend Christmas with another woman. She'd sat in a parking garage feeling broken and alone. Now she stood in her own home, running her own business, living her own truth. She'd taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into the foundation of something beautiful. The best revenge wasn't making Julian suffer. It was becoming someone he could never touch again. Someone whole, strong, successful on her own terms. She was free. She was powerful. She was finally, completely herself. And tomorrow she'd wake up and do it all again. Keep building, keep growing, keep helping others find their way through darkness into light. Just like she had. The story that began with betrayal ended with triumph. Not because Julian fell, but because Naomi rose. And she was just getting started.